Okay, seriously. We've all been there, right? Like that deadline is just staring you down. The to-do list is like judging you. And suddenly anything but that feels super important. Like, I don't know, color coding your bookshelf or something. Procrastination. It gets us all.
It really does.
And today we're going to go deep on this, like why we do it, and more importantly, how to beat it, how to stop procrastinating.
Yeah.
I think there can be some serious aha moments here, because what we think we know about procrastination might be completely wrong.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is we often think of procrastination as this like time management problem, when really it's much more about managing our mood.
Okay, so you're saying it's not that we don't have enough time in the day, it's that facing certain tasks just makes us feel, I don't know, just kind of ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Research suggests that it's actually those like negative feelings that we associate with the task that we're actually trying to avoid. And the crazy part is it's estimated that the average person wastes like 4 hours a day procrastinating at work.
Okay.
That's like a whole other job just avoiding your actual job.
That is both terrifying and relatable. So instead of just being lazy, we're actually, emotional ninjas or something, dodging bad feelings however we can.
In a way, yeah. But the good news is once we kind of understand that that's what's going on, we can start setting ourselves up for success, right? And one of the most effective things that we can do is what we call clearing the decks. Which is really all about removing distractions.
It's like chucking my phone into the ocean so it can't tempt me with all those notifications.
I mean, you could do that, but maybe not that drastic. The idea is to just like put your phone in another room, close those tabs on your computer that you don't need, create a space where you can work without all those little, ooh, shiny moments that take our attention away.
Right. Out of sight, out of mind, basically. But what about when the task itself just feels overwhelming? Like, I want to write a novel, but like just looking at a blank page makes me want to like crawl under the covers and hibernate until spring, you know?
Yeah, and that feeling is a huge procrastination trigger. And it often comes from a lack of clarity. Like we see this big, vague goal and we just freeze up. And that's where breaking things down into smaller chunks, smaller, manageable chunks is so helpful.
So instead of write epic novel, it's write chapter 1, scene 1. Maybe even just write the first paragraph.
Exactly. And suddenly you've gone from this like big, vague monster of a task to something that feels concrete and achievable. And your mood shifts from, I can't possibly do this, to, okay, I can do this. This feels doable.
Right. It's manageable. And that shift in mood is key, right?
Yeah.
Because if we feel better about the task, then we're less likely to avoid it.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's got to be more to this puzzle. Because sometimes we procrastinate on things that we actually want to do, right? It's like there's a disconnect between like logically knowing we should do something and then like actually getting it done.
Yeah, you've hit on something that's really crucial here, and that is our relationship with our future selves.
That's interesting.
We often have a hard time connecting with that future version of ourselves who's going to have to deal with the consequences of our procrastination. It's almost like we see future us as a stranger.
Right. Future me will figure it out, not realizing future me is probably rocking back and forth right now being like, why past me? Why me? Well,
and the interesting thing is that neuroscience backs this up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Studies actually show that our brains react to our future selves kind of similarly to how they react to strangers. Like there's an emotional disconnect that makes it easy to put things off.
Whoa, that is wild. Okay, so how do we bridge that gap? How do we stop treating future us like our own personal dumping ground for all the stuff that we don't want to deal with right now?
Well, there are a few things that we can do. And one technique that's been gaining some traction is this idea of writing a letter to your future self.
Wait, so I'm writing to future me, like, dear future self, please don't hate me for this mountain of dishes I'm leaving you.
I mean, you could, but the most effective way to do this is actually to have future you write back. So imagine future you is saying, seriously, past self, I am drowning in deadlines and dirty laundry over here.
Ouch.
And it helps us to connect emotionally and really understand the burden that we're placing on that future self.
Okay, that is weirdly brilliant. I'm suddenly like way more motivated to do the dishes tonight. But what about tasks that just, suck? Like I'm never going to be excited about doing my taxes no matter how much future me begs.
Yeah, well, that's where this concept of meaning comes in. We're naturally drawn to tasks that feel purposeful. The problem is not everything we have to do sparks joy. I mean, does anyone actually enjoy filing their taxes?
If they do, I don't want to meet them. So how do we make those soul-crushing tasks less soul-crushing?
One really powerful strategy is this idea of tebbling. And it's basically linking something that we do enjoy to the task that we dread. It's like sneaking veggies into a smoothie. Suddenly, the not-so-pleasant thing becomes a little more bearable because it's connected to something good.
Okay, I'm liking this analogy. Give me some real-world examples, though.
Okay, so imagine you only let yourself listen to your favorite podcast while you're exercising. Suddenly that workout becomes way more appealing, right? Or let's say you hate folding laundry, but you love, I don't know, listening to audiobooks. Well, tethering those activities together could make that chore feel less tedious.
So I'm basically bribing myself with entertainment to get things done. I can definitely get behind that. And let's be real, sometimes those bribes are necessary. But what about those times when we just, we slip up?
Yeah.
Like the best laid plans and all that. How do we deal with that guilt and get back on track without, completely spiraling?
Yeah, that's where self-forgiveness comes in. And, we were talking about how procrastination is all about managing negative emotions. Well, beating yourself up for procrastinating just adds more negative emotion into the mix. It's just a vicious cycle.
So instead of wallowing in shame, we need to, hit the emotional reset button.
Yeah.
Give ourselves a break and move on.
Exactly. Research actually shows that self-forgiveness reduces negative mood, which in turn makes us less likely to procrastinate in the future. It's about shifting from that I messed up, I'm terrible mindset to more of a, okay, I slipped up. What can I learn from this kind of approach?
This is so important because I think a lot of us, we get stuck in that cycle of self-blame and it just makes everything worse.
It does. We got to be kinder to ourselves. Occasional slip-ups, they're normal, they happen. And it's about recognizing that slip-up, forgiving yourself, and getting back on track, not letting it completely derail you.
This has been so insightful already. I'm rethinking my entire approach to procrastination. But before we go any further, I have a feeling that there's even more to uncover, right? What are some of the less obvious factors that contribute to this universal struggle?
You're right. There's a whole hidden world of things that are influencing our procrastination, and we haven't even touched on them yet. So let's dive into some of the more surprising scientific discoveries about why we procrastinate, starting with the role of our brains. Get ready for a fascinating journey into the world of neuroscience. So welcome back to our exploration of procrastination. Before the break, we were talking about how self-forgiveness can help us break free from that cycle of guilt and get back on track. Now let's shift gears a bit and dive into the fascinating world of neuroscience, to really uncover what's happening in our brains when we procrastinate.
Okay, I'm ready to get all brainy.
Yeah.
So it's not just a matter of willpower or laziness, right? There's got to be some serious neural circuitry at play here.
Absolutely. It's much more complex than just, not feeling like it. It involves this really interesting interplay of emotions and cognitive processes, even evolutionary biology.
Wait, evolutionary biology?
Yeah.
You're telling me procrastination is woven into our DNA or something? Like it helped our ancestors survive saber-toothed tigers?
Well, not saber-toothed tigers specifically, but you're on the right track. Imagine our ancestors, right? Living in this world where there are all these immediate threats, and focusing on long-term goals could literally mean missing a meal or becoming someone else's meal.
So plan for the future wasn't exactly a top priority when you might get eaten tomorrow.
Exactly. Their brains were wired for, immediate needs and rewards. And while we don't face those same survival threats today, our brains still kind of retain some of those primal instincts. We're naturally drawn to that instant gratification, which in our modern world can manifest as procrastination.
Wow, so it's like our brains haven't quite caught up to the demands of modern life. We're still operating on that ancient fight or flight mode, even when the only danger is, a looming deadline or something.
That's a great way to put it. And our brains are actually really efficient at conserving energy. And procrastination, in a way, is a form of that. By putting off these mentally demanding tasks, we're kind of giving our brains a break, even if it's not the best choice for us in the long run.
So procrastination is like a little mental vacation for our brains, even though it might leave future us with a mountain of work to deal with.
Precisely. But here's the good news. We're not, slaves to our primal instincts. We have this amazing ability to rewire our brains to develop healthier habits. And that's where understanding this thing called the prefrontal cortex comes in.
Okay, the prefrontal cortex, that sounds important. Is that like the command center of our brains or something?
You got it. It's the part of our brain that's responsible for all those, higher level functions like planning, decision making, impulse control, and that all important ability to delay gratification. Think of it as like the wise executive function CEO of your brain trying to keep everything running smoothly.
So it's like the prefrontal cortex is the adult in the room, while the rest of our brain is like, ooh, shiny object, let's go play.
Exactly. And here's the thing. The prefrontal cortex is actually one of the last parts of our brains to fully develop. It doesn't reach full maturity until our mid-20s.
Oh, that explains a lot. It's like our brains are still under construction during those, crucial years when we're trying to navigate like school and work and just adulting in general. No wonder procrastination can feel like such a struggle sometimes.
Exactly. It's like trying to build a skyscraper with a team of trainees, right?
Hmm.
It takes time and patience and a lot of scaffolding to keep things from collapsing.
Okay, so we can't magically like speed up the development of our prefrontal cortex, but we can give it a good workout, right?
Mm.
How do we train our brains to be like procrastination fighting machines?
Well, there are several things that are really effective, and one that's getting a lot of attention is mindfulness meditation.
Mindfulness meditation. I've heard it's great for like stress reduction and focus, but how does that actually help with procrastination?
Mindfulness meditation is really all about training your attention, right? It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings without judgment and observing those urges to procrastinate as they come up, but not getting swept away by them. It's kind of like building a muscle of awareness.
So instead of letting our thoughts like run wild with, worries about the future or regrets about the past, we're simply acknowledging them and letting them go. It's almost like hitting the delete button on those distracting thoughts.
Exactly. And the amazing thing is, by practicing mindfulness regularly, you can actually strengthen your prefrontal cortex. And that improves your ability to resist those impulsive urges, including the urge to procrastinate.
Wow, that's pretty incredible. So by simply sitting still and paying attention to my breath, I can actually like rewire my brain to be more focused and disciplined.
It sounds too good to be true, but there's a growing body of scientific evidence suggesting that mindfulness meditation can have these really profound effects on brain function. Studies show that it can increase activity in the prefrontal cortex, improve attention span, and reduce impulsive behavior.
Okay, I'm definitely adding mindfulness meditation to my procrastination fighting arsenal. Are there any other like brain boosting exercises that we can try?
Absolutely. Another effective approach is to engage in activities that challenge your brain in new and interesting ways. Think of it as like mental cross training.
Mental cross training. I like that. So what are some examples of brain boosting workouts?
Really, anything that stimulates your brain and forces you to think outside of your usual patterns. It could be things like learning a new language or playing a musical instrument, solving puzzles, or engaging in creative pursuits like painting or writing, even learning a new dance style.
So basically anything that breaks us out of our routine and gets those mental gears turning, like shaking up the snow globe of our brains.
Exactly. By exposing your brain to these novel experiences, you're essentially forging new neural pathways, right? And enhancing cognitive flexibility, which then translates to better focus, improved decision-making, and yes, you guessed it, reduced procrastination.
This is also fascinating. It's like we're peeking behind the curtain of our brains and discovering all these incredible secrets about how they work. But I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface of the neuroscience of procrastination, right?
Right.
What other brain regions are involved in this complex dance?
You're absolutely right. We've only just begun to explore this intricate neural network. We've talked about the prefrontal cortex, which is a key player. But there's another region that deserves our attention, and that's the amygdala.
The amygdala. Okay, hit me with some more brain science. What role does the amygdala play in procrastination?
Well, the amygdala is often referred to as the fear center of the brain, and it's responsible for processing emotions, especially those related to threat and danger. Think of it as your brain's built-in alarm system, always scanning the environment for potential threats.
It's like the amygdala is our internal security guard, like always on high alert, ready to sound the alarm at the first sign of trouble.
Exactly. And here's the key connection to procrastination. When we perceive a task as threatening or overwhelming, our amygdala, it kind of kicks into gear, right? And it sends out all these signals of stress and anxiety, which can then lead us to avoid the task altogether.
So it's like our amygdala is hijacking our rational thinking, like telling us to run for the hills even when the only threat is, an approaching deadline or a daunting to-do list.
You nailed it. And the more we give into those avoidant urges, the stronger that neural pathway becomes, making it even harder to resist procrastination in the future.
So it's like we're training our brains to be afraid of certain tasks by repeatedly avoiding them. That's a scary thought.
It is a challenge that we all face. But the good news is we can retrain our brains to respond differently to those perceived threats. We can learn to calm down that overactive amygdala and convince it that those tasks aren't actually, life or death situations.
Okay, so how do we soothe our inner alarm system? How do we tell it to chill out? Do we need to whisper sweet nothings to our amygdala?
Well, whispering might not be the most effective approach, but there are several techniques that can really help. One of the most powerful is deep breathing exercises.
Oh, okay.
By consciously slowing down your breath and focusing on the physical sensations of breathing, you can actually activate the parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for calming the body and the mind.
So it's like we're sending a message to our amygdala saying, hey, everything is okay. There's no need to panic. We can handle this.
Exactly. And there are other relaxation techniques that can be just as effective, like progressive muscle relaxation, where you systematically tense and release different muscle groups to reduce physical tension and promote a sense of calm.
These are great tips. It's amazing to see how understanding the interplay between these different brain regions can actually give us the power to take control of our behavior.
Yeah.
But I have a feeling there's still more to this complex neural puzzle, right? Mm. Are there any other brain regions we need to recruit for our procrastination fighting team?
You're right. We can't forget about the reward system, that intricate network of brain structures that fuels our motivation, our pleasure, and yes, even our procrastination.
The reward system. That sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
So the reward system, it's all about seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. It's driven by this neurotransmitter called dopamine, often referred to as the feel-good chemical. And here's the key connection to procrastination. Our brains are actually wired to seek out activities that trigger that dopamine release. Unfortunately, for a lot of us, those activities often involve that instant gratification rather than those, long-term rewards.
So it's like our brains are constantly playing this game of instant gratification versus delayed reward. And procrastination often wins out in the short term because it offers that quick dopamine hit.
Exactly. Think about it. Scrolling through social media, watching funny videos, indulging in sugary treats, all of those things provide these immediate bursts of dopamine, making us feel good in the moment. In contrast, tackling those challenging tasks, it often requires that sustained effort and delayed gratification, which can feel less appealing to our reward-seeking brains.
So it's like our brains are saying, hey, why work hard for a reward that might come later when we can get this quick fix of dopamine right now? That's a tough opponent to beat. But surely there's a way to retrain our brains to appreciate those delayed rewards.
Absolutely. It's all about rewiring those neural pathways and finding ways to make those long-term goals more appealing to our reward system. And one really effective strategy is to consciously link those challenging tasks with positive emotions and rewards. So instead of viewing those tasks as burdens, we can try to reframe them as, opportunities for growth, for learning, and for personal satisfaction.
So it's about shifting our perspective and focusing on the positive aspects of those tasks, even if they don't provide that immediate gratification. Like instead of seeing laundry as this dreaded chore, I can reframe it as a way to care for my clothes and create a more peaceful living space.
Exactly. And to further reinforce those positive associations, you can reward yourself for completing those tasks. It could be something as simple as, taking a break to enjoy a favorite activity, spending time with loved ones, or indulging in a healthy treat. The key is to create that positive feedback loop where accomplishing those tasks becomes associated with pleasurable experiences.
So it's like we're creating our own internal reward system where completing those tasks earns us those feel-good dopamine hits.
Mm-hmm.
That's brilliant. I'm starting to see how understanding the neuroscience of procrastination can actually give us this roadmap to overcome it. But before we Before we delve into those actionable strategies, I have a feeling there's one more brain-related factor we need to explore.
You're reading my mind. We can't forget about this fascinating connection between procrastination and our sleep-wake cycles.
Sleep-wake cycles. Okay, now we're really getting into the nitty-gritty of brain science. I'm all ears.
So it turns out that our procrastination tendencies, they can actually fluctuate throughout the day. They're influenced by the ebb and flow of our natural energy levels. Have you ever noticed that you're more prone to procrastinate at certain times of the day?
Oh, absolutely. For me, it's definitely that dreaded afternoon slump. After lunch, my brain just feels like it's running on fumes, and suddenly anything that requires effort feels like climbing Mount Everest.
That's a perfect example of how our sleep-wake cycles, also known as our circadian rhythms, can really impact our productivity. Our bodies are designed to follow this natural pattern of energy peaks and dips throughout the day. And understanding these patterns can be a game changer when it comes to combating procrastination.
Okay, so how do we harness the power of our circadian rhythms to our advantage? Do we need to become sleep ninjas, meticulously tracking every energy fluctuation?
Well, while becoming a sleep ninja might be helpful, there are simpler ways to work with your natural rhythms. One effective strategy is to schedule your most challenging tasks for those times of day when you naturally have the most energy. For a lot of people, that's typically in the morning, but it can vary depending on individual preferences and sleep patterns.
So it's about aligning our most demanding tasks with our peak performance times.
Yeah.
Like tackling that complex work project first thing in the morning when our brains are fresh and energized, rather than trying to wrestle with it, at 3 p.m. when we're already mentally drained.
Exactly. And for those inevitable afternoon slumps, consider, scheduling less demanding tasks like responding to emails or organizing your workspace, rather than you trying to force yourself to focus on something that requires that intense concentration.
That's a great tip. It's about working smarter, not harder, by aligning our tasks with those natural energy flows. I'm starting to see how understanding the science of procrastination can help us take a more strategic approach to managing our time and energy.
Precisely. And as we wrap up this deep dive into the neuroscience of procrastination, remember this key takeaway. Procrastination is not a moral failing. It's not a sign of weakness. It's this complex interplay of brain processes that we can learn to understand and manage.
This has been such an eye-opening exploration of the inner workings of our brains. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of why I procrastinate, and more importantly, how to outsmart those procrastination gremlins. But I know there's still more to uncover. What other strategies can we use to break free from this all too common habit?
Stay tuned for the final part of our deep dive, where we'll unveil a treasure trove of practical tips and techniques that you can start using today to boost your productivity, achieve your goals, and finally say goodbye to procrastination.
All right, welcome back to our deep dive into procrastination. We've talked about the emotional side of things. We've explored the crazy world of our brains. And now it's time for the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
The actionable strategies that will help us break free from procrastination's evil clutches.
It's time to put all that knowledge into action. We've laid the foundation. Now let's build that procrastination-proof fortress brick by brick.
Okay, I'm ready to get my hands dirty. So where do we begin? What's the first brick in this anti-procrastination fortress?
Well, we touched on this before, but it's worth emphasizing again. Break those daunting tasks down. Break them down into smaller, more manageable chunks. Remember that mountain of doom analogy?
Oh, how could I forget? It's like you're standing there at the foot of Mount Everest, just feeling totally overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the climb ahead.
Exactly. But when we break that massive mountain into a series of smaller hills, suddenly the journey feels much less intimidating, right? Our brains, they thrive on clarity and structure. Give them a clear path forward, one step at a time, and watch their resistance melt away.
So instead of focusing on the overwhelming enormity of the whole project,
Yeah.
we're zeroing in on those smaller, more achievable steps. It's like creating a roadmap to success, like one milestone at a time.
Precisely. And here's a pro tip. Make those initial steps ridiculously easy. So easy that you almost feel silly not doing them.
Okay, I love this. So if I'm, totally dreading writing that big presentation, instead of just staring at a blank screen for hours, I might start by simply, opening the document and jotting down 3 bullet points.
Exactly. Or even just creating a new folder and giving it a catchy name. The key is to overcome that initial inertia, that resistance to just getting started. Once you've taken that first step, it's much easier to maintain that momentum to keep moving forward.
This is such a powerful reminder that sometimes the hardest part is literally just getting started. Once we break through that initial barrier, the rest often flows more easily. It's like pushing a heavy boulder, right? It takes a lot of effort to get it moving, but once it's rolling, it's much easier to keep it going.
That's a brilliant analogy. And once you've got that momentum going, a fantastic tool to help you maintain focus and productivity is the Pomodoro technique.
Okay, I've heard of this one. It's something about tomatoes, right? Does it involve throwing tomatoes at our procrastination demons?
Well, while tomato throwing might be cathartic, the Pomodoro technique is a bit more structured. It gets its name from those cute little kitchen timers, the ones that are shaped like tomatoes. And the technique involves setting a timer for 25 minutes of focused work, followed by a 5-minute break. And you just repeat that cycle 4 times, and then you take a longer break, like 15 or 20 minutes.
So it's like a structured system of work and rest intervals designed to keep our brains fresh and focused. It's like giving our brains little snacks of rest throughout the day to keep them energized.
Exactly. The 25-minute work periods, they create a sense of urgency, right? And they prevent us from getting, bogged down in distractions. And those regular breaks, they allow our minds to recharge and then come back to the task with renewed focus.
I love the simplicity of this technique. It's so easy to implement. You don't need any special tools or apps or anything, just a simple timer and the willpower to stick to those intervals.
Precisely. And you'll be amazed at how much you can actually accomplish in those focused 25-minute bursts. It's like a mini sprint for your brain followed by a well-deserved pit stop.
I'm definitely adding the Pomodoro technique to my productivity toolkit.
Yeah.
So we've got chunking, we've got Pomodoro. Any other procrastination busting weapons in your arsenal?
Absolutely. Remember how we talked about our brain's love for rewards? Let's harness that to our advantage.
Oh, yes. Those dopamine hits are a powerful motivator. How do we turn rewards into a procrastination fighting force?
It's all about creating a system of positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
Identify a task that you've been procrastinating on and pair it with a reward that you genuinely enjoy.
So if I'm dreading cleaning my apartment, I would promise myself like a relaxing bubble bath and a good book once I've finished, or maybe a guilt-free Netflix binge.
Exactly. Or a delicious meal at your favorite restaurant, a shopping spree, a massage. The possibilities are endless. The key is to choose a reward that truly motivates you, something that you'll actually look forward to.
Okay, I'm on board with this strategy. It's like turning those dreaded tasks into stepping stones to something enjoyable. Suddenly, procrastination seems a lot less appealing.
Exactly. And here's another pro tip. Make the reward contingent on completing the task, not just starting it. This ensures that you actually see it through to the end.
Wow, that's a great point. Otherwise, we might end up, rewarding ourselves for simply thinking about cleaning the apartment without actually lifting a finger.
Exactly. The reward is the prize at the finish line, not a participation trophy for good intentions.
I love that. Okay, I am feeling incredibly motivated to tackle my to-do list right now. But what about those times when procrastination just feels so deeply ingrained?
Yeah.
Like it's this unbreakable habit. Is there any hope for those of us who feel like we're chronic procrastinators?
Absolutely. Remember, our brains they're incredibly adaptable. And while breaking deeply ingrained habits can take time and effort, it is absolutely possible.
Oh, right.
One key strategy for overcoming chronic procrastination is to cultivate self-compassion.
Self-compassion. Okay, that sounds intriguing. How does self-compassion help us break free from the procrastination cycle?
Well, chronic procrastinators, they often struggle with feelings of guilt and shame and and self-criticism and these negative emotions. They create a vicious cycle. They fuel further procrastination, making it even harder to break free.
So it's like those negative thoughts become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Keeping us stuck in that rut of procrastination. We tell ourselves we're terrible at this, so we just give up before we even start.
Exactly. That's why self-compassion is so crucial. Instead of beating ourselves up for, past procrastination, we need to treat ourselves with kindness and understanding. Recognize that everyone struggles with procrastination from time to time. It's a normal human experience.
So it's about acknowledging our struggles without judgment and recognizing that we're all works in progress, always learning and growing.
Precisely. And when we approach ourselves with compassion, we create a more supportive inner environment that allows us to grow and to change. We replace that harsh inner critic with a kind and encouraging coach, cheering us on every step of the way. That is such a powerful shift in perspective.
Yeah.
It's like we're trading in our inner drill sergeant for a more compassionate and supportive mentor.
Exactly. And remember, every small step forward is a victory, right? Yeah. Celebrate your progress, no matter how small it may seem. Each time you resist that urge to procrastinate, you're rewiring your brain. You're strengthening those neural pathways of productivity.
This has been such an incredible journey of discovery. We've explored the science, the strategies, and even the emotional landscape of procrastination. I feel like I've gained a whole new understanding of this complex phenomenon and a renewed sense of hope that it can be overcome.
I'm so thrilled to hear that. Remember, procrastination is a challenge we all face, but it's not an insurmountable one. Mm-hmm. By understanding the underlying causes, implementing those effective strategies, and cultivating self-compassion, we can break free from its grip and achieve our full potential.
Well, folks, that concludes our deep dive into the world of procrastination. I hope you found this journey as enlightening and empowering as I have. Remember, procrastination is not a life sentence. You have the power to change your habits, to rewire your brain, and to achieve your goals. Until next time, stay curious, stay motivated, and keep diving deep.